Namaste, my name is Amber Jean and I've been practicing the Rocket for 20 years. I studied with Larry Schultz in San Francisco, and I also assisted him in teacher trainings as well as run my own yoga studio here in Cincinnati, Yoga Today we are going to talk about the Rocket philosophy and how this philosophy ties in to the asana practice and how the philosophy ties in on and off the yoga mat. So a big part of the philosophy, and this is one of the first things that Larry would tell us to write in our journal, is live in the question. And when he told us this and told us that this was part of the philosophy, we didn't really understand what that meant, live in the question. And what live in the question means is being in the moment and being present and not agitating our mind for answers of always knowing and being okay with the unknown. So this became really important for us as we trained in Rocket because we would start to develop different questions. And these questions can evolve from your practice. So for example, if you were asking yourself or the teacher, where do my hands go in Utthita Trikonasana? So that's the classical triangle pose. So if you ask yourself, where do your hands go? Okay? And we don't have an answer, okay? Instead, we're going to move from a place of exploration and creativity, which we're going to talk about a little later. So living in the question, do my hands go on my shins? So placing my hands on my shins, I'm able to experience that feeling. Where do I feel it? And I'm feeling it a little bit in my inner thigh and my side. Now classically in Ashtanga, we grab our big toe. Where do my hands go? Well, classically they hold the big toe. So what effect do these different variations have on the asana? So holding the big toe, now I'm noticing that I have to pull up more and use my core. So I'm able to experience different feelings in the same pose. And by living in the question, we can come up with more creative answers and not be so stuck in the box. That's a big part of practicing the Rocket, is we say this is yoga out of the box. We want to be out of the box. So there is no wrong or right way to do the poses in the Rocket system. However, there are safe ways, and that's first and foremost behind the philosophy, is making sure that the way you're practicing is right for your body. So that will take us into the second point of Rocket philosophy, which is creativity and embracing ourselves as a creative people and as individuals that are all sharing this practice together. So what does that mean? Part of that means that when you look at a Rocket class, everybody might be in different positions. This is very common in Rocket because we want to listen to our bodies and practice the variations that suit us where we are that day the best. For example, Utthita Parshvakonasana, which is a very it's the classical side stretch pose. You want a fairly wide stance for Parsvakonasana. And what that allows is you to bend the knee and for the hip to come down. So as a beginner practicing Rocket, you would set your forearm on your thigh, and you would inhale, your arm across your ear, gazing towards your palm. So this may be suitable for you when you first start practice or if you just want to take it easy. Now, some of you may want to go a little bit deeper. Maybe you want to practice the more classical variation. And so this can allow you to go deeper. You'll notice my hip bend gets deeper when I drop my fingertips to the outside edge of my foot. The arm is lengthened. Gaze is still the palm. So now I'm able to experience a little bit deeper, okay? And then we have other variations, like a bind it variation. So this variation, as a student, you may be working on your shoulders, which we're going to talk about how to focus on different body parts here in a minute. If you're wanting to work on your shoulders more and challenge your legs more, you could go into a bind it variation. Now this particular side stretch variation, it's opening the shoulders. It's making me engage my core more because I'm using a lot of strength in my legs. So the Rocket is going to encourage you to practice creatively. If you're practicing yoga and you always practice the same way, you will always create the same results. And most of us are practicing is because we're craving change. We're craving change in our bodies, in our minds, on and off the mat. So the Rocket system actually gives you the freedom to explore. So for another example of being creative, this can also be called function over form, okay? And we're just gonna go into a basic downward facing dog, which is called Adho Mukha Svanasana in Sanskrit. So here we are, starting in child's pose, extending hands out in front of us. So from child's pose, this can be a nice way to get into a downward facing. The hands are extended. Notice there's lifting in my wrists. So all of my arms are going to be integrated. Fingers are spread. And we build the pose from the ground up, okay? So here, I'm going to lift my hips into Adho Mukha Svanasana. And the classical variation in Ashtanga is feet hip distance, heels to the floor. So this is what the pose looks like. And there's nothing wrong with this pose. However, if I keep practicing this day after day, I will only continue to produce the same results. So in the Rocket system, we're going to suggest stepping the feet out wide, coming up onto the tippy toes, bending the knees, and now check this out, take a deep breath in, exhale, bend the knees, push the hips up, and slowly straighten your legs to lengthen your spine. So now we've created a whole new effect in our body. The wider stance is affecting my hamstrings. I'm also noticing more of a stretch in my inner thighs. So that's one version of function over form. So if we wanted to go to classical form, one result, If we wanted to get our hips functioning more, widen the stance, bend the knees, lift the heels. And so that's one thing that you may have heard about the Rocket, is that we're the bad ladies and bad men, because we challenge the classical variations to create new results. I'm going to give you guys one more example of this today because I think this really illustrates it well, and it's with the pose Hanumanasana. So this pose is, you do come into it from Prasaritas, but I'm just going to go right into it today. So being creative, if you're a beginner to Rocket, you practice a modification. The back knee's on the floor, the front foot's flexed. As a little bit more advanced student, you slide deeper. So many, many years of practice, the hips come down, okay? And then we'll say exhale, fold forward. Okay, so I'm being very good lady right now. However, not everybody is that flexible. So let's say you're in this variation and you hear the cue, or if you're instructing, exhale, head down. So again, in this pose, you're gonna keep getting the same result. But in Rocket, we're gonna allow you to release the hip. The back knee bends, and that's okay. This is letting go of the form, and now releasing your head. So the hips can move much more freely. So now using this type of position, and it's not the perfect alignment of Hanumanasana, I'm able to get into new areas in my body. And that's what we want to do. We want to access all areas. When you learn the Rocket, which is based in Ashtanga yoga, it's like learning another language. You're going to hear words like breath, bandha, and drishti. And the more you are around the language, the more comfortable you'll be. So I want to talk a little bit about drishti because this really is part of the philosophy of the Rocket, is drishti. What does drishti mean? Drishti is actually, in classical Ashtanga, a particular place that you look. So for example, when you're practicing a Surya Namaskara, a sun salutation, you start in Samasthiti and the gaze is forward at the horizon. Inhale, arms up, gaze to thumbs. And so by pulling in your drishti and your focus, you're able to bring your practice more into focus. However, in the philosophy, we don't want it just to be on the mat, but also off the mat is what are we focusing on? And how do we see ourselves? So part of the practice is visualizing. Visualizing yourself in the poses. Visualizing yourself making these rocket transitions. See yourself getting stronger. And by practicing visualization, you're opening yourself up to a vision. And that's really what the practice is about, is it's not just the physical aspects, but creating a vision for ourselves and creating something that is going to bring something in our lives that's going to bring us happiness and joy. And that's really what Larry wanted, you know. Larry wanted us to open up to the possibilities, and once again, not just stuck in the box. So if you look at everything we talked about, exploring on our mat, practicing creativity, practicing quieting the thinking mind, practicing listening to our breath, all of these things are clearing us out so that we have space for vision and drishti. Another part of Rocket philosophy is everything in our mind is make-believe. And this part of the philosophy is called Nollyland. And this is one of my most favorite parts of practicing the Rocket. When you come into your yoga space and you're able to focus on yoga and let all the other stuff go, all the troubles of the day, anything that's been weighing on your mind, and you bring your mind around to focusing on yoga, good things just start to happen. So Larry would remind us that everything in our mind is make-believe. And by practicing and focusing on our breath and our bandhas and our drishti, you're going to be able to focus your mind in a new way that's going to allow you to go deeper into your, not only your physical practice, but also your mental state, your nervous system, calming the nervous system. And this philosophy is called Nollyland. In Nollyland, we speak in the positive voice, and we let our inner teacher hold the key and quiet that other voice, the inner critic. So when you're practicing, notice what you're paying attention to. Notice what you're focusing on. What voice do you hear when you practice? We want to remind ourselves to relax and breathe and go with the flow. And that is truly the big umbrella of the Rocket philosophy, is to let go, relax and breathe, and go with the flow. I hope this gives you a better understanding of philosophy today, and I wish you well on your Rocket practice. Namaste.